So are you an actual toy train enthusiast, or is that meant to be like a metaphor for something else like childhood?
Yeah, well, it's funny, that song Electric Trains, I'd written it, and I had a feeling of electric trains, like I literally remember the smell when I was a kid, but it wasn't like I had, tons of trains or whatever, and I sort of associated it with my family and my dad a little bit, and never really quite understood what the song was about. And then all of a sudden, when sort of refining the lyrics and rewriting it, I realized the song was about my brother. He died when I was 5, and he was, and it's really about, how we have these things in our lives, especially in childhood, that affect the rest of our lives, and no matter where we go in this world, we carry them with us,
Did you say that your brother had died?
Yeah, he died of a kidney thing when he was 19. He was the oldest, and I'm the youngest. Obviously a big deal to the family,
Yeah, of course. The phone dropped out when you said that, so I wanted to make sure we get that. I noticed the dedication on Undressing Underwater is Benjamin Michael Anderson.
That's him.
Well, that's sad because they're lining there about Cherry Drive and you're still alive. I thought maybe Benjamin Michael Harrison was your dad, and it's that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, my brother, and it's really not a song about sadness so much.
No.
Because time carries on, and you start to put it on perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
Some people were meant to be here a certain amount of time, some people weren't,
Yeah.
But it's more about how these memories are etched in your being, and they affect the way you are, and wherever you go, you'll always have them. It's like a place that each person comes from, and I don't know, that's really what the song's about.
Well, in addition to his own recordings, Rusty's also done quite a bit of session work for a pretty diverse list of artists. If you bear with me, I'm just going to name a few of them. There's been Elton John, Neil Diamond, Willie Nelson, Joe Cocker, Little Richard, Carole King, Stevie Nicks, the Bangles, the Wallflowers, the New Radicals, Meat Loaf, Gwen Stefani, Nelly Furtado, Regina Spektor, Lisa Marie Presley, and Jewel, among many others. You played on a lot of big hits that our listeners would recognize. Are there any that you're particularly proud of playing on?
Yeah, it's I start to kind of forget. I went through a period of doing so much of that, playing different artists' records, and yeah, I really liked playing on the New Radicals record. I thought that was some guitar playing that I was pretty proud of. Livin' La Vida Loca was obviously probably one of the biggest ones, because that was such a big deal. And that was done really quickly. I just threw some guitar on, I just came up with some riffs and threw them on there, and I came up with the concept because I thought I just wanted to push the song in a guitar-y direction as much as I could, because I like guitar,
Did you play a Gretsch on that? It has that kind of Chet Atkinsy kind of clean tone.
Actually, I played a really weird guitar because it was tuned down to C sharp.
Oh.
And what I did is demo. I recorded at my house the guitar in my studio, and then later found out that it wasn't that it was actually going to make the record. Then it was the first single, and blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
I didn't put any reverb on it on purpose because I didn't like any of the reverbs I had available. I did it so quickly,
Yeah.
and I used this weird guitar that I called a Strelly. It was a hybrid between a Strat and a Telly, and it was already tuned down to C sharp, so I just grabbed it and played it because it was convenient.
So you dropped the low E to a C sharp and left the rest of the conventional tuning?
I probably dropped the 2 low strings down.
Sure.
Or, you know what? I think the whole guitar was tuned down to C sharp coincidentally.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, so I just sort of played it in that key, and so it has that real floppy sound to it.
Yeah, well, that was a monster hit. And the New Radicals, I remember their song too. I like the sound of that recording a lot. I haven't heard the complete album, but now that I know did you play on all the tracks or just most of them? Or?
Yeah, I played on almost all of them. There's
Yeah.
a lot of cool guitar stuff on there, I think. I mean, I don't know. It was one that I felt particularly like I was able to connect on. And there's some cool stuff on the Different Light Bangles records. That was like probably the first record, like actual record that I played on. And there's a song called September Girls that I enjoyed playing, sort of a psychedelic, extreme stylized.
Is this a situation where you work with one big-name artist like Elton John, and because you've done that on your resume, it gets you the job with Joe Cocker or Willie Nelson, or is it, you happen to work with a particular producer? Or?
Well, yeah, I work in, like I said, the Bangles. I'd actually done something before that, but that was the first like real big record that I played on, and then I started playing on other records, and then it just sort of snowballed into these different things. And now it's funny, I forget, which ones I've done. Having done so much work with Paul McCartney, that sort of overshadowed a lot of it.
It did, yeah. As if all that session work in your own solo career wasn't enough, you've also got what most of us would consider the dream gig, playing lead guitar in Paul McCartney's band. I can see why he wants you in the band, because you have a tasteful way of putting your own stamp on all those classic solos. Are there any songs you particularly enjoy playing with Paul?
Well, I think maybe I'm Amazed is probably my favorite, because I think it's such a great composition. To me, it's just sort of, it's the pinnacle of his solo career. It's the first post-Beatles record. It's really funky, and it's just melodically incredible, and it's sort of classical, but it's also got that late 60s, early 70s, sort of late rock, psychedelic sound, with the Leslie guitar, and it's just such a great amalgamation of so many cool styles all into one cohesive song. It's really fun to play.
There's a studio version, and then I used to always listen to the Wings Over America version. He usually names Here, There, and Everywhere as his favorite Beatles song, and Maybe I'm Amazed as his favorite solo song, if I remember correctly when he's asked. Well, most of your gigs with him are like sold-out stadium shows all around the world, but I know you occasionally get to do a more intimate show like the one you did at the White House not too long ago. Like, what were the highlights of that evening for you personally?
Oh, my God. So many. It was great just to actually get a chance to kind of hang with the artists like Elvis Costello and Jack White and Dave Grohl and all those, everybody, and Corinne Bailey Rae. But I also done a track with her that came out really well. But anyway, yeah, that was fun, and it was so amazing to be up there playing music, for Paul, sitting in the front, and Barack right next to him, and the family, and then everybody, as far as all the performers and the president came up on stage and sang along and Hey Jude, and then when we were done, Barack turns around and then he gives me a big hug.
Wow!
And that was just so surreal, It was very, very, very cool, to say the least.
The musical moment that stood out for me was when that Marine stepped up and played the piccolo trumpet solo on Penny Lane.
Oh, yeah.
And he just nailed it dead on. That was cool.
Yeah, he was really good, and yeah, he did nail it. The funny thing is that behind him there was a giant painting, I think it was of George Washington or something, and at the bottom corner it says United States of America. Like they left the T out. So that was pretty funny.
It is. And it's funny thing is because being a Marine, the room was like, all appreciating what he played, but he had to remain stoic. Like I did my duty, I played my solo. I can't show any expression. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, but I think that's endearing too, because he didn't, get all, hammy about it.
Yeah, it reminded everybody you guys were at the White House. Here's the American military joining in. That was the moment that really stood out for me.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Well, the first time I saw you play with Paul McCartney was the Concert for New York in the wake of the September 11th attacks, and I've since found out that was actually your very first show with him. So that must have been quite an initiation into his world.
Yeah, after that was over, I felt like, man, if I can do that, I can do anything. Especially because, after going on up those huge acts and then going on after them and playing, I felt like, well, we'll get up on stage and there'll be the cool lights and, it'll be intoxicating and everything will come together. And we walked on stage and it was all white lights like a classroom and all the firefighters because, the concert was for the firefighters and the policemen.
Right.
So that was very strange. It was like, you got to generate. There was that feeling of really the need to generate energy and not look to get anything back per se.
Right.
Like of course the audience was very responsive and all that, but it was a very unique show.
It almost kind of reminds me of that situation with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, where their first gig was like Woodstock or something. Their second gig is like kind of, they knew it was a once in a lifetime kind of gig, and they hadn't really got much experience playing together. Well, you and Brian and Abe seemed really into it, and you guys didn't seem nervous, and I enjoyed the set. But I remember thinking, who are these guys? Because the last time I saw him, he had the Hamish Stewart lineup.
Right. Well, that was sort of transitionary because the first record that I did with Paul was Driving Rain, and we came in to do the record. And I met him to the studio. A producer that I work with a lot brought Abe and I in to do the record, and then we did that show, and then but I think there was different people. Like there was only one guitar, just me, and then another guy. When Paul played piano, another guy came in and played bass, and then Brian and Wix came in '02, and then that band. We've been playing with the same people ever since.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I remember you and Abe, but I guess Brian wasn't there that night.
Right. I've known Brian a long time. I've known Abe for a while, and because we're the three from LA, and then Wix is from London, and obviously Paul's from London or England or wherever.
Yeah, I saw the Flowers on the Dirt tour, and Wix was in the band, so he must have the record for playing the longest with Paul. I was thinking about this because you've been with him about 9 years. And I think Ringo was only with him for 7 years, like from 62 to 69 when they did Abbey Road. And then, of course, John and George were with him longer, but by now Wix has probably broken that record, and you and Abe and Brian will probably break it too.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Yeah, the time flies. The feedback I get from fans of his that have seen all of his different incarnations is you guys are the favorite band. Everybody likes your chemistry, your vibe.
It's been a really good, experience. I mean, everybody just... it's just a good chemistry. There's always a balance, and it's always seems to be deeper than anyone can really put their finger on, because a band chemistry it's a relationship. So I just feel really lucky to be part of it.
I'm sure that your association with one of the world's biggest celebrities has allowed you to meet a lot of celebrities yourself, and you've got the song you mentioned earlier, Julia Roberts, which you present in the form of a dream, but have you actually met her?
I haven't really formally met her, no. I saw her backstage at a award show, I think, the Oscars or something.
Well, she sat with Paul McCartney at the Golden Globes, and Ricky Gervais was the host. May have been that night.
Yeah, I don't think I was at that particular thing. I mean, we do a lot of these sort of shows and with Paul, but if the band's not playing, then we won't necessarily be there. But yeah, I've never met her, and but I figure maybe I will at some point.
Now that you've written the song.
I guess for me, writing that song, it was really about, like, I just had this totally off-the-wall dream out of the blue, and I woke up and I wrote down my dream and then turned it into a song, and then I really realized sort of how strange it was that these celebrities just will all of a sudden come into your psyche like that, how deeply they can penetrate you, and you feel as if you know them, but you don't. And I just was kind of marveling at that.
Yeah, that seems like the perfect time to actually play the tune. It's got an appropriately pleasant and dreamy ambiance, and I particularly like the way you develop the melody in the chorus.
Well, thank you.
And definitely McCartney influence on the lead vocal, but that's not a bad thing. So let's go ahead and check it out. This is from Rusty's Born on Earth album, and it's called Julia Roberts.
Waking up to find a stranger on my mind, someone I didn't know, a perfect celebrity of high society, a goddess from head to toe. Julia Roberts and me were flirting down by the sea, carried away by the moment. We were so free. It was like laughter, it was like sunshine, it was like water used to be. All that we live for, love everlasting. Isn't this a lovely dream, Julia Roberts? And Vermont paparazzi were called. I lost to gaze to a man by the bar who didn't like me at all. Julia Roberts and me interrupted inconsiderately. I'm pretty sure that it was her husband. We were so free. It was like roses. It was like sunshine. It was like water used to be. All that we live for, love everlasting. Isn't this a lovely dream, Julia Roberts? Yeah, like roses, it was like sunshine, it was like water used to be. All that we live for, love everlasting. Isn't this a lovely dream? Isn't this a lovely dream? Julia Roberts.
To find out more about Rusty and his music, you can go to his official website, which is rustyanderson.com. That's RUSTYANDERSON.com. As always, we have links and photos posted on our Facebook page as well. If you haven't joined us there yet, please do. Well, I'm going to close the show now with some kick-ass rock and roll. This is one of my favorite Rusty Anderson tracks. It's called Devil's Spaceship, and you can find it on his Undressing Underwater CD. Well, Rusty, thanks so much for being my guest today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was fun chatting.
And now let's all buckle up and take a ride on the Devil's Spaceship.
Here we go. My Tourette's is kicking in. Is your patience wearing thin? Just another night. Get it right. Yeah. I'm on the devil's spaceship. I own the DMV. So let me see your pink slip. Tell nobody that you're friends with me. No! Oh yeah! my bones and hit the note that's never there. I'm on the devil's spaceship. I'm in the CIA, but you'll never trace it. Oh yeah, I'm on the devil's spaceship. I run the FBI. I'm on the devil's spaceship. I won't tell your mama that you made me cry. Well, got to thinking there for a spell. What can you ever really trust when the sun starts going down on this fun little dirty town? What if it's incidentally us? Won't you say that you will? Honey, I'll meet you up on that hill. Don't you say no. We could both run, but where would we go? You told me so you know it's true. We're a good one, me and you. Seems to me like it might be our time. Maybe we should make a move. Let me know if you approve. Wanna be your partner in crime. Won't you say that you will? Honey, I'll meet you up on that hill. Don't you say no. We could both run, but where would we go? Sitting in some French cafe, or we could stay right here at home. It's when the sun goes fading down on this fun little dirty town. You are the light forever glow. Won't you say yes? I'll rent the tuxedo, you go buy it.